There's a sentence that has been said to grieving men so many times, it has become almost invisible. Be strong. It gets said at the funeral. It gets whispered in the parking lot of the cemetery. It gets offered by brothers and cousins and coworkers who love you and do not know what else to give. And after a while, after you have heard it enough times, a man stops hearing it as a suggestion. He starts hearing it as instructions, as a job description, as the only acceptable way to carry what he is carrying. Be strong. Which means do not fall apart. Do not let people see it. Do not slow down. Do not need anything from anyone. Handle it. Keep moving. Stay upright. And here's what I want to say today, plainly and directly, to every man who has been living under those instructions. That is not strength. That is survival, dressed up as strength. And there is a very important difference between the two. Survival gets you through the day. It keeps the lights on. It gets you to work on Monday morning. It helps you answer the question, how are you doing, with something that ends the conversation quickly. Survival is what you do when you do not have another option. But survival is not rebuilding. Survival is not living. And if you have been confusing the two, if you have been measuring your progress by how well you are holding it together on the outside, I want to invite you today to consider that you may have been running on the wrong fuel for a long time. I know because I did it. After I lost Terry, after 32 years of building a life with someone, after 32 years of being a husband and a partner, and the man who came home to someone every single night, I kept moving. I stayed busy. I told people I was fine because fine was the easiest word, and the truth was something I was not ready to say out loud yet. The truth was that I did not know who I was anymore. See, nobody tells you this part. People talk about grief like it is an emotion, like it is sadness that comes in waves and eventually gets smaller. And that is part of it. But what nobody told me, what I had to find out the hard way, is that grief does not just take the person. It takes the version of you that existed inside that relationship. The man I was for 32 years, the husband, the partner, the one who had a purpose built around another person, that man did not survive the loss. And the grief I was carrying was not just for Terry, it was for him too. For the identity I had worn for 3 decades, for the routine that shaped every single day, for the future I had pictured that would never happen now. And nobody had given me language for that. Nobody had sat with me and said, what you're feeling right now is not just sadness. It is identity loss. It is purpose loss. It is the complete dismantling of the story you had been living. So when people told me to be strong, what they were unknowingly asking me to do was carry all of that alone, quietly, without letting any of it surface. And I did what most men do. I obliged. I want to talk about where that leads. Because here's something that most people do not know. Research shows that 85% of people who seek grief support after losing a spouse are women. 85%. That gap is not because men grieve less. It is not because the loss hits men differently or that men are somehow better equipped to absorb it. It is because men have been handed a story, a deeply embedded, culturally reinforced story that says needing support is weakness, that reaching out is a sign that you cannot handle it, that a real man processes his pain privately and comes out the other side stronger without ever asking for help. And that story is not just wrong, it is dangerous. Studies now show that men who carry grief without processing it, men who manage it instead of moving through it, have significantly higher rates of cardiovascular disease, depression, social isolation, and early death. Not slightly higher, significantly higher. The body keeps a score. You can refuse to deal with the grief consciously, but it will find another way out. It always does. So why do men keep doing it? Why do we keep choosing survival over actual healing? Because the story runs deep, and because nobody ever showed us another option. That is the work I do. And it is the work this podcast exists for. I want to break down the 3 layers of this Be Strong story today, because I think understanding where it comes from is the first step to getting free of it. The first layer is cultural. From the time most men are boys, they receive a very clear message about emotions. Emotions are for women. Crying is weakness. Vulnerability makes you a target. Asking for help means you cannot handle your own life. These messages do not arrive in a single conversation. They arrive in 1,000 small moments, on the playground, in the locker room, in the way the men around you handled their own pain, or more accurately, in the way they did not handle it. You absorb the blueprint without anyone handing it to you directly. And now it runs in the background of everything you do. The second layer is relational. For many men, especially men who were in long marriages, the person they processed everything with, the person who knew when something was wrong before they even said a word, was the person they lost. She was the safe space. She was the one who could handle the real version. And now she's gone. So the place where vulnerability was allowed is gone with her. And the man is left with a grief he does not know how to carry and no safe place to put it down. This is one of the most painful and least discussed parts of losing a spouse as a man. The loss is not just the person. It is the loss of the one relationship in his life where he did not have to be strong, where he could be honest, where he did not have to perform. The third layer is identity. And this is the one I want you to sit with today. When a man has been a husband, really been a husband in a real marriage for a real amount of time, that role becomes part of who he is at the most fundamental level. It shapes how he moves through the world, how he makes decisions, how he answers the question of what his life is for. And when the marriage ends through loss, the role does not just disappear, it leaves a gap, a silence, an absence of identity that most men have never been taught to navigate. And into that gap, if nothing comes to fill it, the grief builds a story. A quiet, patient, persistent story that sounds something like this. You are not the same man you were. The best part of your life is behind you. You do not know who you are without her. Moving forward would mean leaving her behind. You should be further along than this by now. That last one is the one I hear most often. I should be over this by now. And I want to say directly to the man who has said that to himself, there is no timeline for rebuilding an identity. There is no schedule for figuring out who you are on the other side of the most significant loss of your life. The idea that you should be over it is not coming from wisdom. It is coming from that same story. The be strong story, the handle it story, the do not need anything story. You are not behind. You are exactly where a man who has been carrying this alone without the right support, without the right tools, without someone sitting with him in the real version of the story, you are exactly where that man would be. And here's the thing I want you to hear, maybe for the first time. That can change, not gradually, not after enough time passes, not after you figure out the right way to be strong about it. It can change when you make a decision to stop managing the story and start rewriting it. That is what my book, Rewrite the Story, is about. not a 12-step program, not a grief framework built in a clinical setting by someone who studied loss from the outside. A book written by a man who lived it, who lost 32 years of marriage and did not know who he was anymore, who tried the survival approach and found out where it leads, and who eventually, through the right conversations, the right honesty, and the willingness to say out loud what was actually happening, found the road back. The book is available right now. You can find it at books.by/Simplified Uplifters Publishing. I want you to write that down. Books.by/Simplified Uplifters Publishing. It is available in print and as an ebook. And if you are the man I think you are, the man who is tired of managing and ready to actually move, it was written for you. And if you are ready to go deeper than a book, if you want to sit down directly with me and work through your specific story, your specific stuck points, your specific next steps, Walk with Ron is a private 3-session coaching intensive built around exactly that. No templates, no frameworks applied to someone else's situation. Just your story, your obstacles, and an honest roadmap built for where you are right now. You can find that at simplifieduplifters.net/walk-with-Ron. The link is in the description section also. I will say this to close today, and I want you to really hear it. The bravest thing a man can do after loss is not to hold it together. The bravest thing is to be honest about what it actually took from him and then decide to rebuild from that truth instead of around it. You are not broken. Your story is, and stories can change. Thank you for being here. If today's episode reached something real in you, share it with another man who needs to hear it. Leave a review if you are listening on a platform that allows it, and come back next Monday because we are just getting started. And most important, remember, you are extraordinary.